Ever hear a Chinese person say, "We don't pay much tax here"? Let me tell you something shocking. That is one of the biggest lies ever sold to the Chinese public. Not by foreigners, not by the West, but by their own government. The truth? China is quietly draining the wealth of its working class citizens through a stealthy, sophisticated tax system that punishes the poor more than the rich. I used to believe China had a fairer tax model. High income earners pay more and ordinary folks are spared. But when I started digging, I found something horrifying. China has weaponized taxes against its own people, and most don't even realize it. First, let's talk about the illusion of fairness. Ask anyone anywhere which tax system is tougher on the poor, the Chinese one or the American one. Almost everyone would say the US is worse. After all, the US is the poster child of capitalism. The rich live in penthouses and the poor juggle two jobs and still go hungry. China, in contrast, waves the flag of socialism, cracking down on the rich, promoting common prosperity, redistributing wealth. Sounds nice, right? But here's the twist. It is all a mirage. In practice, the Chinese system is harsher on the poor than the US system. And the reason most people don't see it is because China's taxes are invisible. In the US, 60% of households pay personal income tax. People know they're taxpayers. In China, only about 6% pay income tax. The other 94% live under the illusion that they don't pay tax, when in reality, they're being bled dry through indirect taxation. And that illusion is what allows the CCP to waste trillions on ghost cities, vanity mega projects, the Belt and Road Initiative, and the foreign aid to a bunch of African nations, without the people ever asking where the money comes from. Because they don't feel it. They don't see it on their paychecks. So they don't fight it. To truly understand this tax scam, we need to know there are two main types of taxes. Let's simplify this. First, direct taxes. You see them, you feel them, like income tax and property tax. While the second category is indirect taxes. You don't see them, but they are baked into everything you buy. VAT, sales tax, custom duties, etc. In developed countries, the tax breakdown is mostly direct. In the US, over 90% of tax revenue comes from direct taxes. In China, only 37%. That means nearly 70% of taxes in China are indirect. Buy a drink at the mall for 10 yuan. You think the store gets 10 yuan? Nope. 13% of that goes to the government in the form of VAT. Buy a car, the taxes alone can inflate the prices by 40%. Buy a house, more than half of the price is hidden land tax. And this is why the average Chinese worker who thinks they don't pay tax is actually one of the most heavily taxed individuals in the world. According to Forbes' Global Tax Burden Misery Index, China ranks number 2 globally, beaten only by France. Not because income tax is high, but because everything else is. Now, why do I say indirect taxes are a trap for the Chinese taxpayers? Because indirect taxes don't touch the rich. Why? Because the wealthy don't spend like the poor. They don't buy more bread. They don't drink more milk. They don't ride the subway 10 times a day. They buy assets, real estate, private companies, offshore stocks. They store wealth in luxury property, art, foreign bank accounts. All of it untaxed. Indirect taxes like VAT only hit you when you consume. So if you're rich and live modestly, you basically escape the system. Meanwhile, the poor, they spend everything just to survive. And every single transaction gets schemed by the state. So the system that pretends to promote common prosperity ends up taxing no one but the poor, but the common people. And this is not a bug, it is the blueprint. So, yes, even in a self declared socialist country, the poor pay more than the rich. And some defenders of the Chinese system may say that China's tax system is generous. Poor people don't pay income tax. Sure, that sounds nice. But remember, not paying direct tax doesn't mean you're not being taxed. Li Keqiang once reviewed that 600 million people in China make less than 1,000 yuan per month. That's 960 million people under 2,000 yuan a month. With a 5,000 yuan income tax threshold, most people don't qualify to be taxed. And that's exactly what the government wants. Because people who don't see the tax deducted from their paycheck never feel like they are being robbed. So they stay quiet and patriotic. Let's take a look at the receipts that hide the truth. In the US, let's say when you buy a $20 item, your receipt says $20 item and then $1.2 sales tax. So in total, $21.20. In China, the receipt just says 70 yuan, no breakdown, no tax line. And because of that, Chinese shoppers genuinely believe they don't pay tax, even though the 13% VAT is higher than most developed nations, including Japan, South Korea, and the US. Why does the government hide this? Because the first step to being a citizen is knowing that you are a taxpayer. And once you know you're paying for the system, you will start demanding it works for you. And that is dangerous to authoritarian regimes. Now, let's talk about land finance, the ultimate scam. You know how homes in China are crazy expensive relative to the salary? Well, more than 50% of that price is land sales fees, aka tax in disguise. In 2018, Country Garden paid 382 million yuan for a plot in Guangdong. They developed 204 units and sold them at 26,000 yuan per square meter and made about 650 million in revenue. So how much of that actually went to the government? Almost 60%. You're not buying property. You're renting land from the state for 70 years. And you're paying through the nose for it. You don't own the land. You're just paying the government to lease it. And that 60%, it's not called a tax, but that's basically what it is. Now, let's talk about the war on small businesses. Running a business in China is brutal. Even after corporate income tax, which is 25%, you get slammed with the 7% urban construction tax, 3% education surcharge, 2% local surcharge, VAT, infrastructure levies, social insurance contributions. You make $1 million yuan in profit, take home after all these taxation is barely 600,000 yuan. No wonder even patriotic CEOs like Cao Dewang moved factories to the US. Because guess what? It's actually cheaper to run a factory in Ohio than in Shanghai. That's how broken the system is. And the most insulting part to the Chinese, they are paying heavy taxes without benefits. High tax fine if it funds great hospitals, schools, and pensions. But in China, you pay one of the highest tax burdens in the world. And still can't afford hospital bills, get no free medicine, send your kids to overcrowded schools, save your own money for retirement, because the government isn't spending your money on you. It's spending it on bridges to nowhere, railways to empty cities, and giving billions in foreign aid for international clout. Let's also not forget the tax no one dares to call it a tax: corruption. In China, bribes aren't an exception, they are a feature, a hidden toll on everyday life. Want faster surgery or a better doctor? Slip a red envelope under the table. Trying to get your business license approved? Prepare some tea money for the local official. Building a factory, opening a store, bidding for a project. If you don't pay off the right people, you don't get started, you don't get in. It's not just immoral, it's expensive. This informal economy costs billions in wasted capital every year. And guess who foots the bill? The taxpayer, ordinary citizens, entrepreneurs, anyone without power. Corruption is the ultimate indirect tax. It steals not just your money, but your dignity, time, and trust in the system. And unlike VAT or income tax, you don't get a receipt. And then there's the inflation, the most deceptive tax of all. Since 2008, China's M2 money supply has exploded from 40 trillion yuan to over 300 trillion. That's not growth, that's dilution. You didn't get a raise, your bank account didn't grow, but your yuan, it buys way less. Bread that costs $3 now costs $8. Your savings quietly eroded. That's not market forces, that's state policy. The Chinese government deliberately inflates to keep the economy running and exports cheap. But here's the kicker. That's $3 trillion foreign exchange reserves the CCP constantly brags about. It's not free money. It's not state profit. It's the cumulative result of Chinese people selling real labor, real products, paid in dollars, then having those dollars seized and converted into yuan. The government keeps the dollars and you get the printed yuan. That is a currency tax. And it props up the illusion of a strong reserve while stealing Chinese people's purchasing power. Inflation doesn't show up on your tax return, but it drains your life savings every single year. And here's the real danger of China's indirect tax system. It doesn't just drain your wallet, it erases your sense of ownership. In most democratic countries, citizens say, we are the taxpayers, we have the right to ask, where is our money going? That mindset is powerful. It holds governments accountable. It fuels transparency. It builds democracy. But in China, most people don't even realize they are taxpayers. They think tax is something that only the rich pay, or something their employer handles behind the scenes. So when the government wastes billions on foreign aid, ghost cities, or vanity infrastructure, there is no outrage, no resistance, no accountability. Because if you don't know you're the one paying, why would you even question? How is that spent, how the money is spent? And this is the genius and the evil of China's tax system. It disconnects payment from responsibility. It keeps people docile, uninformed, and that is by design. Chinese people must realize you're the taxpayer, you're funding the government, you're paying for ghost cities, you're bankrolling Belt and Road giveaways, and you have the right to say no. I want that money spent on my community. And in any healthy society, the government works for the people, not the other way around. China's tax system is not about socialism. It's not about prosperity. It's about control, illusion, and quiet exploitation. But the moment citizens realize they're taxpayers and that taxpayers have rights, everything changes. You pay, you decide, you demand. Until that day comes, the scam continues. If this opened your eyes, drop a like, share this with someone who still thinks that China has low taxes, and comment below, what shocked you most about China's tax system? I'm Ken, and thanks for watching. Stay bold, stay informed,